More than 2 weeks since Nancy Guthrie went missing, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos issuing a strong statement Monday, saying none of the Guthrie family members, including siblings and spouses, are suspects, saying the family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious and are victims in this case, adding to suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it is cruel. The Guthrie family are victims, plain and simple. The statement, a direct response to an army of so-called armchair detectives, internet sleuths who have taken an interest in the case and at times made up wild and often inaccurate theories about Nancy's disappearance 17 days ago, some of it fueled by erroneous media reports. Until now, the sheriff has been reluctant to rule out anyone since there's still no suspect. But Nanos tells NBC News he did it because sometimes we forget we're human and we hurt and kindness matters. I'm not going to sit in silence when others are attacking the innocent. And the sheriff telling KOLD 13 family members were ruled out as suspects in the first few days. We're also learning more about the array of tactics investigators have been using, including trying to track down Nancy through her pacemaker, according to the sheriff, and canvassing local gun stores, according to a federal law enforcement official. Another outstanding question, that glove found 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home that the FBI says contains unknown male DNA. While a person familiar with the matter says the glove is consistent with the one seen on the suspect in the surveillance video, forensic experts are increasingly skeptical.
Is this glove the aha moment that some people might be making it out to be?
Well, in my opinion, it's not, because it's really too far from the crime scene. I think my biggest question is, have they found DNA from an unknown male inside that house?
DNA was found on the property that, according to the sheriff's office, is not Nancy's or someone close to her. The sheriff tells us investigators are still working to determine who it belongs to.
And the sheriff also says that they're looking into the possibility that, like the suspect's backpack, his clothes, like his face mask, his zip-up jacket, that those items were also bought at Walmart. He says that investigators are actively right now working with Walmart management, and part of that is trying to figure out who, if anyone, may have purchased all or some of those items. Craig?
Liz Kreutz for us there in Arizona. Liz, thank you.
We're joined now by NBC's national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent, Tom Winter, who's been following this every step of the investigation. So, Tom, yesterday the sheriff announced that the family has been cleared. He said to say otherwise would be cruel. What made him say that at this point?
Yeah, I mean, first off, anytime you're running an investigation like this into a disappearance, an abduction, you got to start with the last person that saw her alive. And in this case, it was the Guthrie family. And it was a member of the Guthrie family that dropped Nancy off at the house on that Saturday night. And now we know, obviously, she went missing in the overnight hours on that Sunday. So any investigation would naturally start there. But I think it's important for people to understand there's been a lot of online speculation about this. Of course, the sheriff is not initially going to rule out anybody because they haven't solved the crime yet. Throughout the entirety of this investigation, there is not a single person that I have talked to that has been briefed on it, familiar with all the facts of the case, that has ever said there was a single piece of evidence that tied back to any member of the Guthrie family, period. And so that's why they have to keep an open mind. That's why you've heard him say we're not clearing anybody, but that's why they feel so strongly to come out and make that statement. And in this environment, we've seen it on this case for sure, and on a number of cases, there's all of this online speculation, the online true crime community, and it gets people spun up. And then you have to see law enforcement divert their attention away from their job to knock down these, frankly, in this instance, baseless rumors.
Yeah, a lot of nonsense online. A lot of nonsense. Let's talk about what the sheriff also said about the clothes that he may have been wearing in addition to the backpack that may have also been purchased at Walmart. Yeah. How significant is that?
I actually think that could be quite significant. So we've been focused on the backpack because we know from Walmart's financial filings that that specific backpack is a private label. So they're the only ones that sell it. But now, if they're looking into the idea that some of the other items of clothing that this person in the doorbell camera is wearing could have been purchased there as well, that could be really helpful, because it's one thing just to buy a backpack. But if somebody's buying a backpack and this specific jacket and that specific mask, they will take all the store records. We started talking about this a little bit last week. Now it's so much more enhanced because you can say who bought all three. And if you're buying online, same story. Buying in store, same story. You're going to try to look for somebody who's actually bought all three of those things. That's going to be a lot harder than just somebody who bought one thing. I know some people say, well, what if he bought those items with cash? Well, you'd know that it was a cash purchase. you could go back to the store and hopefully there might be some video surveillance of either a car or somebody coming into the store that would be very helpful to this investigation. So that actually could be a bit of good news, a bit of hopeful news this morning.
Okay.
Thank you,
That's what we want, some hopeful news. Tom, thank you as always. Again, we want to put up the tip line right now. If you know anything, if you've heard anything about this case, there's the phone number, 1-800-CALL-FBI.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC or take Today when you're on the go. Just follow the Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.